Welcome to Practice Doula, the podcast for midwives at every stage of the journey. Whether you're exploring the calling, navigating school, launching your first practice, or evolving as a seasoned birth worker, this is your space for support, insight, and inspiration. I'm your host, Kim Pekin, certified nurse midwife, certified professional midwife, former birth center owner, and midwifery mentor. Let's grow together, one courageous step at a time. Today, I am so happy we have Peter Johnson. He is with us today on the Practice Doula podcast, and he is the President-Elect of the American College of Nurse-Midwives. So I just want Peter to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his journey and what brought him to where he is now. Peter, go for it. Welcome.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to kind of introduce myself and talk about midwifery and midwifery workforce. I've been a midwife for 40 years now, and I would have to say that my journey into midwifery, into the profession, was an unlikely one. 42 years ago, I was a new nurse in the Air Force, and I got assigned to a role in a maternity unit that I never really saw coming. And I actually, at the time we were pregnant, my wife and I at the time were pregnant with our first, and I thought, well, I'm interested in babies and this process, so, let's go for it. And I have to be honest, I quickly recognized that women were being systematically raped within the healthcare system that was supposed to be there to help them. And I watched that suffering. For the first time in my life, it probably took me about a half of an evening on labor and delivery unit by myself with a woman in labor that I realized that was what I was supposed to do. And like I said, I never saw it coming. But wow. I am so glad. I'm so glad I found midwifery, and midwifery found me.
Wow, that's so wonderful and inspiring. Lots of time there is that aha moment where it just kind of hits you that this is where you're supposed to be, and look at you now, 40 years later. But you never thought you would be coming in as President-Elect of ACNM. How did you end up there? How did that happen?
Well, right from the beginning, I was very fortunate to go through a midwifery training in the Air Force, and we had a very, very competency-based, adult learning-focused program that was short, intensive, and had an excellent faculty. I remember there were four students and we had 3 instructors at the time, and a program director. So there was four teachers and 4 students. And I remember we had bunk beds, and we slept on the bottom back bunk so we didn't have to wake up our teachers when we got up in the middle of the night. And we had a whole caseload of folks of clients at the hospital where I was training at Andrews Air Force Base to take care of. And I remember having a series of conversations with my program director, Colonel Ruth Payton at the time. She was, a past Air Force, past ACNM leader, and somebody really inspired me. And I remember her saying to me that, that ACNM was a small enough community that if you chose to engage, you could really make a difference. And she and the other faculty were role models in that process from the very beginning. And I think the expectation was that I was going to step up, and I started doing that. And just one thing led to another. And through the mentorship I received, I just had more and more opportunities, and it's just kind of been a step-by-step process over 40 years.
That's wonderful. In my experience, it's once you step up and you do something, you start to get tapped for a lot of different things. So you get a lot of different opportunities once you show that you are really interested in doing the work. And so that seems to have been the case for you as well. Like, once you got tapped for one, it just kind of led to something else. So, why should midwives get involved? And how should they get started, do you think? Do you think, what's the importance of doing it, and what's a good way to get started?
Uh, I I think probably the most important reason for doing it, for stepping up and engaging, is that if we all don't do it, who's going to? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, we're the ones that, we're the ones that care about midwifery and what midwifery can bring to women in our society. And, we can certainly network and get other people that are supportive of what we're trying to do. But if we don't do it, uh, if we don't do it, nothing is going to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's, um, it's also got some real tangible, I think, tangible benefits. The more you engage with other folks, with colleagues, the more you have an opportunity to meet to meet friends, friends that care about the things that you care about. Roll your sleeves up together and work on things. Some of the people I worked with early on in my career are my closest friends now, 40 years later. Those relationships, they stick. And also, that's how you grow. You exercise your muscle, you learn things, and you're being provided with opportunities to get mentored by different people with different kinds of expertise.
Right.
So, example, one of my teachers in midwifery school was Lisa Payne. She's now the, chief exec for our ACNM Foundation. First midwife I met when I was a labor and delivery nurse, and she invited me to become a member of the Division of Research right out of school. She was the chair of that division, and I worked with her and had an opportunity to work on the first database a database of midwifery practices that we had around the country, called Gravidata. I don't know if you
Oh, no,
remember that history,
no,
but
I didn't know about that.
that was way back in the early '90s, and I made friends and colleagues that way, and learned a lot from them. And then, I got involved in the American Midwifery, the AMCB, the American Midwifery Certification Board, back before it was called AMCB, and worked with Judith Fullerton, one of the preeminent leaders in our profession, and she mentored me on task analyses and test writing. And worked with me as I was working on my PhD, and shaped that part of my career. And then, I got involved with ACME, Accreditation Commission, as a site visitor, and met people that knew a whole lot more about education than I did during that time, and educational standards. So, I think my journey that way has been similar to lots of colleagues that I respect that have been around and rolling up their sleeves.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I can see the evolution there, and it seems like, you know, I don't think very many people go into midwifery with advocacy in mind. Like, as far as advocating for the profession, they probably are thinking about helping people through, their pregnancies and births and, well woman care and all that sort of thing. I don't think most people go into midwifery for that, but then you quickly get in and you realize how much you love the profession and you love the work and you want to advocate for making it even better. And that's how you get involved in improving things. And it kind of rounds out your experience as a midwife, because you have these things that you love, but you know that there are so many barriers in some ways to being able to practice in the way that you want to practice, and the only way to make changes, to make that possible, to make that vision of midwifery possible, is to, to actually get involved and to do the work and, step up. And I love that. Being involved in advocacy for me was like, it just kind of helped me when I was feeling down about doing the actual physical work sometimes, to know that the trajectory forward was a good one, that we were working towards something great, even when we had those hard births. And so, I think it just is a whole other dimension of how we can be midwives, and we can midwife the profession as well. So,
and I didn't have to know where I was going when I got started. I don't think any young midwife or any midwife at any age entering the profession has to know where they're going when they get started.
Right.
But just trusting that you are needed, and as one step will lead to the other, and you'll be pushed and pulled both in the right, in the direction that's most, that's most meaningful for you, and the one that will get the most out of your your individual set of talents.
Right.
Another thing that I recognized as getting out of being engaged early on was, we go to those annual meetings where you're, with midwives, and you realize that, that's like the 1 week always felt like the 1 week of the year where the world was right side up, and I was around people that saw things the way I did.
Right.
When you're battling in the clinical trenches, trying to advocate for what we know is right. But that week, it was always way more fun when I got together, because I was constantly doing things doing things that I felt would matter with other people, as opposed to just kind of standing around and watching other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us felt very disconnected during COVID, and it's been hard for us to get back together as groups, and just taking a small step of maybe attending your state meeting and, doing what you can to get involved. It's I think a lot of us are a little traumatized by what happened in 2020 to 2022-ish, and we didn't realize how much we missed in not being together like that. And it really is, it's inspiring. I went to the ICM not the conference, what do they call it? The ICM Congress. And I did that a couple of years ago. And
the Bali?
The one in Bali, yeah. And
I missed that one.
it was a good one. It was the first time I'd ever gone. And I think one of the really important things to take away from that is that we're all midwives around the world. And, we all have similar struggles, just different ones, but similar, of authority and autonomy and, compensation and all the, scheduling and burnout and all the things that go into midwifery. And there's really, being able to see that you're not alone, I think, is really a powerful thing, and seeing how many people really truly believe the way you do. It's really a beautiful thing. Midwives often get burned out or overextended, and I think that it makes them hesitate getting involved. How can somebody get involved in a way that feels sustainable instead of burdensome? Like, in what ways could somebody contribute that, small or big or whatever? How can somebody do that?
That's a question I have been asked more than once. And I think in some ways it depends on kind of how much time you have to give and where you are in your career. I think a lot of people are feeling like they don't want to get completely sucked in for something that they're, make any promises that they can't keep, let's say. Mm-hmm. So there's constantly things that need to be done, both at the affiliate level, within your state, and within the national context. And I suggest that people, just throw themselves out there and say, this is how much this, I have this much time at this point. I have this interest. I can work on this one, this one thing. You don't need to overpromise and say, I'm going to be a chair of a, I'm going to be a chair of a committee, or I'm going to make a 3-year commitment to something that you don't know that you can sustain. For me, one of the things that I big fan of is site visiting for our accreditation commission. ACME site visitors are desperately needed, and you don't have to be an experienced educator to be a site visitor. There are, lots of room for people that have been preceptors or have a clinical background in doing that. And that's a job where I always felt like I could do it. And I knew that the site visit was going to be on, September 15th, and I was going to get the report to review on July 15th. I was going to establish a relationship with that education program and learn a lot from them. And then after September 15th, I was going to submit a report, and I was going to be finished. And I could point to that and say I did a good job. I helped, I helped build the workforce, but I didn't have to. It was done in 2 months.
Right. Yeah, and that's a really great point. Some jobs, and within organizations, some volunteer work is really finite like that. You could get involved in helping to be on a committee for a short-term project, like organizing a meeting of like a midwife gathering, like the was it the program committee for for a conference, or or like what I'm doing this weekend is I'm volunteering to help at a booth for my school at A1 convention. So there's different things that you can do, and in that process you meet a lot of great people, and you get to flex some different muscles, and it's good. Sometimes all they need is people who can proofread things and write things, or maybe you could go talk to a legislator if you have a relationship. Maybe you delivered some of their babies or something. Like there's all different ways that you can contribute, and sometimes it's just being open to stepping up in whatever way you can be useful, and I think that makes a big difference. It doesn't have to be like my commitment when I was on the NARM board, where it was 15 plus hours a week. That's just kind of an outrageous commitment to expect out of any working midwife. But, it's amazing that people have given that much, though, of their time to do that kind of work.
I could have never done this job as, ACNM President-Elect and President, certainly, during other, seasons of my life. I was a global health worker traveling, 30 to 40% of my time internationally. It's just, I still found those short-term ways to stay engaged.
Right.
But I couldn't have done what I'm doing now. Now I'm working, I have a half-time employment. I have a little bit of, I have a little bit of bandwidth to take on the big lift.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the first thing is, if I was talking to a midwife that was asking about, what they could do, is think about what would be fun, and think about who you'd want to work with, and where you might have something you're interested in learning a little bit more about, and just go do it. Certainly, ACNM, May 5th, we were in DC lobbying at the federal level. That's important. It's 1 or 2 days out of your life, and it's fun to get together with other midwives and to explain why it's important to people that can do something to help you.
Yeah.
You can do that at the state level too. There's all sorts of opportunities.
Mm-hmm. So as far as ACNM goes, are there any specific programs or committees or mentorship opportunities that you think midwives should know about that maybe they don't know about?
Well, I would refer people to the ACNM website, and there is a volunteer. There's a volunteer tab on it that you can click on, and it will take you to the new volunteer leadership structure in the organization. that has, a variety of divisions and committees and councils, and to peruse what they're, they're all there. All their work is described, and it's kind of a one-stop shop to see what's available. I talk to affiliate leadership and get to know them. That's closer to home, and I know that my affiliate in Virginia is always looking for people to do things.
They are. We're both Virginians. I've seen those calls for help frequently.
And the same is true. I'm working in New York State, so I work with the affiliate and kind of have a foot in both worlds. And I know there's lots of need there as well. I mentioned, ACME, AMCB, the foundation, our different partners. And again, one of the things that's very exciting is the Midwives of Color committee is now the Midwives of Color Council. So it's taking on greater importance and greater voice in the organization. So certainly anybody that is interested in increasing diversity, having a workforce that looks more like the people that we take care of, that's a place where I would strongly encourage engagement.
I think that's a really great thing. I've noticed ACNM has really stepped up in recent years to work on access and equity and diversity in the profession, and I'm really happy to see that progression. That's a really good thing, and it's a great place that's where midwives are needed to work.
Yeah, kind of an irony there in that the people that midwives have largely served have been people in, quote unquote safety net facilities around the country where caring for people that were uninsured, and vulnerable populations. But I think we failed in recognizing our need to diversify the profession over time, and I think we've learned lessons. I think I'm hoping that, by and large, as an organization, we have, we're more aware of the implicit biases that we carry, and we have done I think some of the good, hard, gut-wrenching work that we've had to do. It's not over. It's not over. That work is going to continue. It needs to continue in perpetuity. Right. I often, say to people, I'm a white man that was, born in the 1950s, and I grew up in a very racist context, and not in the South, in the North, but it was, I grew up embedded in racist ideologies, and I'm going to be recovering from that. That's work. That's personal work I have to do my whole life. And anybody that tells me that they don't have the same work to do, I think they're not looking closely enough into themselves. And I think that transpires into the whole organization. And I think it does need to be a continued part of our framework.
Right. I think sometimes people think of that kind of work as a once and done kind of a thing, and they fail to see that that's a lifelong commitment to learning, to do better, and to be an ally. I think that is work that you have to take on for the rest of your life. You really do. That's the least that we can do, I really appreciate that ACNM has taken a real, I believe, leadership role in pushing forward on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues, especially with the current political climate. I think that has been taken the wind out of the sails a little bit, to say the least. And so I'm really happy to see ACNM staying strong in that. Absolutely. One thing that I see new midwives struggling with is people who maybe want to switch gears, or maybe they want to become a CNM or a CM, and they don't know a lot about the educational pathways and all of that. Does ACNM have any sort of committee or people who can work with people, or way that people can get answers?
Well, I think we have the new uh, the new affiliate that is focused on certified midwives. I think is going to be critical in moving some of these issues forward. I struggle because I don't think that we really do. We don't have a cohesive midwifery workforce right now in the country. I wish that we had a better connection between CPMs and CMs and CNMs, that we could that things were more seamless and we were more supportive of building the workforce together that we need. I'd like to see the competency-based career ladders that were in place, so that somebody that was an experienced CPM could get credit for the competencies that they had built in their practice, but would be able to expand the scope of practice that they have, and become a certified midwife if that's what they if that was what they wanted to do with their career. I think one of the failures that we've had is that we introduced the certified midwife, the CM, in I think 1997, if I'm correct, close to that.
It's close to
and
that, yeah.
It's been almost, so it's been, it's been almost 20 years, and we, the credential's still not widely recognized, and we set up the structure that we need with accreditation and the same accreditation and certification that our certified nurse midwives go into, but we haven't been able to change. We haven't been able to get the political will internally to have a name of the organization that is inviting to people that aren't nurses.
Right.
We're not growing programs. That part of our workforce is not advancing. So I think that I think during my years in leadership here, to me that's low-hanging fruit. I think that we can build those, and the trick is going to be trying to recognize the important contributions of certified nurse midwives, people that have that credential, be respectful of nursing for providing a home for much of midwifery education, most of midwifery education today, and in the immediate past, but at the same and also recognize their goal towards moving graduate clinical nursing cadres to a doctorate, DNP. I think we can kind of celebrate that, and at the same time say that's not enough, and we are also going to pursue preparation of a more diverse. I don't mean ethnically, racially diverse here. I mean more professionally diverse group of midwives, and ultimately that's going to be that's going to make the most healthy workforce possible.
Yeah, I agree. You and I have talked about that, about how we really feel like ACNM has an opportunity to really unify the profession, and be inclusive of all different kinds of midwives that there are out there. I was thinking about, there are some professional organizations, like I think it's the American College of Surgeons, that all their members are surgeons, but they may have different specialties, and perhaps that may be one way to work towards having a more inclusive type of organization where all midwives feel very welcomed and feel like they have voice and representation within the organization. I would be very much in favor, as a CPM and CNM. I've got my feet in both ponds, and, I'd love to be able to work on unity in the profession. I think it's really needed. I think people are confused by all the different credentials, and, consumers are confused by that, legislators are confused by that, and even students, people wanting to become midwives are confused by all of it. So I think there's a big opportunity there for ACNM to take a leadership role in that.
Yeah, Kim, you're in a great position, wearing both, both hats, and having history in both camps. We need more folks like that, and I think the more folks that we bring in, the closer our relationship will become over time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. You and I witnessed firsthand at US Mara how people from different backgrounds can come together and get to consensus on these issues, and I think we need more work like that to be done. Absolutely. So I was going to ask about the ACNM didn't have a conference last year, I believe it was, or was it the year before? And now they're meeting again. Can you tell us about that? Do you know when that is, and what the theme is, and what people could look forward to?
Yeah, I'll see everybody in October in Palm Springs, California, where we will be partying up a storm, and it's so. You mentioned COVID, and
Yeah.
It's no secret that ACNM struggled in the past few years. Our percentage of membership are down. One of the things that we need to do is rebuild that membership. We have to rebuild trust that people have in the organization. I think in some ways, I think all professional associations, voluntary professional associations, carry a bit of a burden of developing their value proposition to a prospective member. There are other ways that people can connect that weren't there back in the days that we were talking about, 40, 30, 20, 10 years ago. Things have changed. But it's no secret that, COVID hurt us.
Yeah.
One of the things that was probably most important to us financially was a robust annual meeting that we had. And, those meetings were widely attended. They were widely sponsored and exhibited at for many, many years. And that was a great asset to the organization. And then COVID happened during a time that, that the organization was trying to recalibrate. And I think what I'd like to say to people that haven't, that are kind of waiting on the fence to see whether or not, ACNM is a good personal investment for them, is to say, the ship didn't sink. Okay,
Right.
We had to do a lot of bailing to keep the ship afloat. But it's got a good, with Michelle Monroe as a certified nurse midwife, as a former, Army executive, and hospital commander, we have somebody at the helm that really knows what they're doing, and is really committed to, to making, to making ACNM strong and sustainable. And I feel like, I feel like, things are pointed in the right direction right now. Go with the ship metaphor. The ship is pointed in the right direction. We all got to look out over the bow for things ahead of us that we need to deal with. I think the time has come where I'd ask people to stop looking over at the stern or the back of the ship. The icebergs are behind us right now. And we're going to be, I am confident that we are going to be okay. I am committed to making sure that, that we are okay. And Palm Springs is going to be the kickoff for this. It's going to be, a great slate of continuing education opportunities, a variety of workshops on important topics. And I think it'll be the first time that many of us have seen each other over, in the past. We're going to have awards ceremonies in person, and it's. I remember, I was
continuing education.
Lots of continuing education. We're going to dance. It's going to be fun. And we're going to,
so awesome.
and we're going to, that's going to be an opportunity to look for ways that you can continue to engage. So that's what I'd say about the meeting coming
I
up.
think that's great. That's wonderful. I think anybody who hasn't been to one really needs to go this time and see what ACNM has to offer. I think it's going to be a great annual meeting and a real opportunity to have a rebirth of the organization in some ways, because we've all just kind of come out of the COVID haze, and we need to get ourselves back together and move forward. Off of this particular port that we're in, we need to take the ship metaphorical. It's time to launch once more for another port.
We've launched. We're moving. It's get on board.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I agree with you about Michelle Monroe, though. I think she has done some really tremendous work for ACNM, and I'm really excited that work is continuing, and that you're getting involved in this. I know that you are president-elect of the organization. When do you become president? How does that work?
I will become president at the spring board meeting next April.
Okay.
I'm really delighted to have a year in this president-elect. That was a bylaws change that I think was brilliant. It gives me a year to work with Jessica Brumley, our current president, and the board, to get to know what Jessica and Michelle, what their vision is, and be able to, I want to be able to carry forward their vision while adding elements that are important, that I see as important as well. Gives me an opportunity to meet and discuss with people both from within ACNM and people that are not with ACNM right now, to find out what their needs are. I've been speaking to past presidents of ACNM. I've been speaking to kind of people that I trust, that aren't necessarily in leadership roles, but but they're in the trenches in different ways. And I'm talking to young midwives and midwives that have been around for longer than I have. It's a great opportunity, and it gives me a chance to kind of come up with my own strategies, priorities.
Yeah, no, you do need to do that. There's a kind of a steep learning curve in a lot of ways. Fortunately, as somebody who's been around a while, you've accumulated that knowledge base, but there's a lot to the whole president job, that being able to represent ACNM and its membership and all of that. I think that's really important. I'm excited about you're the first man, correct? The first male president of ACNM. That's exciting. That's a change.
Well, who would have? Like I said at the beginning, I was told that if you engaged, you'd have an opportunity. I would say that ACNM's always been. It's always been strange for me to be a white man that is that's in the minority in my profession.
Right.
I think it's been humbling to me to be in that position. I also spent a lot of time working in African countries where I was the only white person in a room. So I tried to leverage the experience I've gained that way. But I never thought that I would have an opportunity to have the privilege of being president of my beloved professional association and support midwifery, which I think is the most it's the most important thing on the planet. So I've had that opportunity, and I have to say, I also never thought that I would. I've gotten a lot of accolades in the past few years of my career. Awards that I didn't seek, and recognition I didn't see coming, and this is my chance. This is my opportunity to get back, and that's exactly what I'm planning to do. The way I'm approaching it.
That's really great. That's fabulous. We're so fortunate, and I'm just delighted that you're going to be in this role within ACNM. I just would like to ask you one question that maybe you can help with for a midwife who's listening to this. What would you say to a midwife listening to this podcast and is thinking, maybe I could be a leader someday? What would you say to inspire them to take that first step?
I would say midwifery needs you, your colleagues need you, and most importantly, the potentially served by midwives need you, and it's just do it. Just do it. Like I said, find those things that find those people that you want to work with, and those things that you feel like you're good at. Maybe something you're not good at. You're stretching yourself a little bit. Find out what you're good at. But yeah, and do it regardless of where you are in your career. If you're a student, there's lots of opportunities for students to convene. Come to Palm Springs as a student, and write the student, meet with the other students and write the student report next spring. That tells the board what the ACNM board what you need, so that they can work on it. Well, one of the things that the students said this year is they wanted ACNM to do a podcast. So Kim, we'll be hitting you as the expert in podcasting. So
I'd be happy to help.
So, and if you're a midwife, you've been around for 30 years, and you're not doing much now, need you too, and just volunteer.
Yeah, that's so great for somebody to hear that. I think sometimes people just need to be asked to step up. And, I think when a midwife hears, we need you, midwives, we are needed. Like, we love to feel needed, and your profession is calling. Your profession is calling you for help and asking you to step up and we all can donate, time, treasure, and talent. Donate some talent. I mean, treasure's great, but, donate some of your time and talent to help promote your profession. I think that's really important. If someone,
the other thing, if I can, the other thing I would say is, don't just think about volunteering with ACNM. I mean, I'm going to be president of ACNM, and I want people volunteering with ACNM. But think about academic leadership. If you're in clinical practice and you have an opportunity to teach a new program, education program that needs to be started, help to start it in your community. Let's build a workforce. If you are in clinical practice, exert your clinical leadership. There are a lot of tools out there that ACNM can use to help, and the network in ACNM can help you with those things. Look at how we've moved the needle on maternity care in this country over the years. When I started, routine episiotomy was the norm, and women were on their backs. Unfortunately, there's still some women on their backs, but by and large, obstetricians don't cut episiotomies routinely anymore, and that's because they saw what midwives did. it's, the whole system needs an infusion of midwifery, and that day-to-day clinical leadership is is essential too. Think about what the research
Absolutely.
agenda needs to be. Think about where there's not evidence, and and work. Either if you're not a researcher, volunteer to work with folks that have a research agenda, to support developing a body of evidence where it matters. There's
Yeah.
there's so much to do.
There is so much to do, and even on a very local, micro level, in your own community, not even at the state level, but just in your own community, perhaps, hosting meet and greets with, your local birth center and hospital staff to get them talking, or the midwives to get them talking to people, because we all rely on each other for birth. It's not, even if you're doing home birth, you're always going to end up at some point going to the hospital with someone, and having them get to know you, or inviting your EMS, contacting them and asking them if you can do an in-service. They love educational opportunities for EMTs. Or if you work in a hospital, maybe getting on one of the committees, with and helping the neonatologists understand some of the choices that midwives make, and why people who seek out midwifery care make those choices, like for delayed cord clamping, and just different mother and baby being together. And it's amazing how people still cling to some non-evidence based practices in the hospital setting, because that's just how it's always been done, and it'll always continue to be done unless people step up and share their expertise and make their voices be heard. It's one way that we advocate for the people we take care of.
Yeah, and Kim, the longer I've been in my career, the more I've focused on on midwifery, the verb, what we do, as opposed to just focusing on midwives and the people that do it. We are the experts in midwifery, and we are the ones that are the most passionate about advocating for midwifery. But one of the things that I think we need to also be able to do is welcome everybody that's with moms and babies or around moms and babies to embrace midwifery and practice midwifery, whether that's a nurse supporting somebody in labor, a doula that's supporting and advocating, or an obstetrician that wants to embrace and change their practice. I often say that the more I've met and worked with resident physicians, resident obstetricians, when you meet them on their first day out of medical school, they're not going into this because they want to learn to hurt people. They oftentimes, if they had found midwifery earlier, they might not have spent 4 years in medical school.
Right.
In learning theory that they're not going to use, but when they get there, you have an opportunity to shape. We are shaping their careers, where midwives are working in large facilities and academic medical centers, and we need to just encourage everybody to just embrace that midwifery model of care, not hold it so tight and own it ourselves.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important. I think also another opportunity that midwives have in their local community is to see if you could go to your high school and talk to their family life education people, and see if you can come in and talk to them about midwifery or birth and all of that. I did that when my kids were in school, and it was so fun to tell them about home birth. It was fabulous. It was
So
great.
Kim,
Get them while they're young, right?
When I was when my oldest son, who's now 43, was in second grade, I got invited to his class to Parents' Day, to talk Career Day, and I took my vinyl pelvis and and baby. And I gave them a whole breakdown of what it was that, that I did. And I got questions that were really pretty amazing. I think one of the little girl's mother had just suffered a miscarriage, and she asked about that. Wow. But the funniest thing was about a week later, I got this envelope with all of these little notes that came from the students thanking me. And the funniest one was one little boy said, "I know where babies come from now, the pelvis, the bones."
That's awesome.
I think I still have them somewhere, those notes.
Oh, that is so precious. That is so precious. I had a student from that class that I went to, that I talked to. She actually came up to me on the highway, and, this is a high school kid, so, driving age, and was honking her horn and waving at me. And I was like, "Who is that?" And I looked, and she's like, "You're the midwife. I want to be you." And so, it was great. You need to inspire them when they're young. Imagine shaping what people think birth should be like, or could be like, what the possibilities are when they're kids, before they're even having babies. Think about what change you could create just in doing that. And that whole process took me an hour, 2 hours maybe, the whole, including prep time, to go talk about these things. So even
that in
at
itself
level,
is leadership. That's leadership that everybody that's listening here can take. Go talk to somebody about midwifery.
Definitely. Well, you have been, Peter, just delightful to meet with today. It's been a lot of fun, and I know that people listening to this may have other questions for you. And so, what's the best way for folks to get in contact with you? Do you have an email you would like to share?
Yeah, people can reach out to me. It's easy. Right now it's President-Elect at ACNM.org. Next year, when I assume the presidency, it'll be president at ACNM.org. And I'm sure if you said something to President right now, that Jessica Brumley would respond quickly to you as well. I'm easy to find, and anybody that wants to get in touch with me, I'm looking for people to get in touch with me and talk to me, regardless of what you're doing. I want to hear what your thoughts. I want to hear what your thoughts and hopes and dreams are for midwifery in the country, so that do the best to support them.
Awesome.
So remember,
That's
ACNM.
So
we are ACNM. ACNM's not. Without you, there is. Without you, there is no ACNM.
That's very true.
And I fear without ACNM, there's not going to be any midwifery. So.
Yeah. No, we're at a
kind of a
critical
circle.
time. Yeah. Well, I hope people will get in touch with you, Peter. I just want to thank you again for being here on the Practice Doula podcast today. If folks are looking for Practice Doula, you can visit our website at practicedoula.com. You can register for a free membership to access our online community. So we're just building that, we're just getting started. So I'd welcome all of you to go there, and I think it's under plans, you can choose the community plan, which is free, and that will give you access to the community. And there are other resources on the website that you may find helpful as well. And as always, just keep doing the work. You guys are out there in the trenches doing the work. Thank you, Peter, and thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Kim. Happy Juneteenth.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks for listening to Practice Doula. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share with a friend, or leave a review. It helps more midwives find us. You can learn more at practicedoula.com.